Take my eyes open to force reality. Why can't you just let me eat my weight in glee? Hush.
Welcome, World Blaze listeners, to episode 74. And I apologize, I missed a week, but something happened today just as I was about to press record. Hot off the presses, Ukraine signs the mineral deal, the one that they said would never happen, the one they said that Trump was literally just being a big bad bully. Big bad Trump, big bad America. Why should a mineral deal ever be signed? And yet here we are today. And I'm going to bet I may possibly be the first podcaster, this may be the first episode you hear, where I am able to talk about this because this is still developing. And I am recording this today, April 30th, 2025. It's 6 p.m. Pacific time in the USA. Yeah. But before I get there, let's talk about, let me touch on the first 100 days of Trump. Now, it's been going around that the first 100 days of Trump has been a disaster. People are saying he's not getting it done. He's not living up to his promises. And look, I'm going to say something that needs to be said. Sure, possibly, maybe. Well, I'll just say that he hasn't held up to all of his promises. And is it all on Trump, or is it really on Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, etc.? Now, Trump did declassify the RFK files. And while it is declassified, we really didn't learn anything new. And then there's the Epstein files, the Epstein list. Where's that at? Apparently, there are boxes and boxes of information and evidence that, we still don't have an answer for, nor do we see any arrests. Now, the Trump administration has gone and arrested what may be considered to be radical judges, leftist judges, judges that are fighting against the Trump administration and even against the Constitution to get their team ahead over the finish line with midterms coming up. But lo and behold, justice prevails. Justice has been done because, just as it has been said in previous administrations, and more to the point, the Biden administration, nobody is above the law. Even President Donald Trump, who was at that time former President Donald Trump. But with the roles reversed, all we hear is the screaming, the crying, the gnashing of teeth. The dictator, they say, Trump the fascist. Yet there's really not much that is fascist about what he's doing. He is putting America first. Now, can we say that we are all giant fanboys of President Trump? I'm not. I voted for him because of his America First policy, just as many did. And the other thing that we voted for was, closing the damn border that the previous administration said couldn't happen. And anytime it tried to come to the table and be presented as something that could be done, they tried to tie other financial obligations to the bill, such as unchecked funding to Ukraine and other nations to get things done as a way to dangle the carrot so that we can just say, okay, fine, we'll vote for it because we really want this border closed. We really need to get under control. Not considering the damage being done to the United States, but just letting all these people through. Unchecked people that ended up actually being criminals. And while everybody said that Trump was a racist, when he previously stated that many of these illegals are rapists, murderers, and just downright nasty people, much of what he said actually came out to be true. Now, again, I don't necessarily agree with everything that is being done in terms of taming the illegal immigration issue. We still have to discuss whether or not, people who have been here a long time, who were born here, people who made a life. Now, listen, they may have been here 20 years, 29 years, 30 years, and then all of a sudden the long arm of the law just catches up with them. And we can make an argument that if they were a contributing person, a contributing individual to our society, contributing, paying the taxes, making a living, making society better. Not a criminal, not being a criminal person, not even trying to push a criminal element or enterprise whatsoever, just being a normal human being looking to live a better life, then I can see the argument. I can see the argument where, well, look, maybe we give this guy another shot, another chance, this woman another chance to live out the life, the dream that they wanted. But then where do we stop? Where does that slippery slope stop? Do we just turn a blind eye to this person who breaks the law and then apply it to the other person that we deem to be more of a threat? That is the question. A question that I honestly don't know if I have an answer to yet. I'm still thinking on this one. And if you have a solution, if you have any kind of opinion or idea on that particular issue, please let me know. Go to the website, fill in the form, contact me, let me know what's going on. You can leave a comment on whichever podcast aggregator you use, whether it's Apple, Spotify, Good Pods, etc. But getting back to the border, the first 100 days within Trump's office, with Trump being the president of this United States, he somehow did the impossible. He actually closed the border. The one thing that the Democrat Party, the previous administration, said could never happen. It was too risky, too hard, too expensive, would never work. I have a video to play of Victor Davis Hanson, who literally breaks this down perfectly. Give this a listen.
He has completely reversed 10,000 people coming in a day, over 300,000 a month, 12 million in 4 years, to essentially 98% of the border is secure. In fact, there is no open border now. Now he has pivoted to try to address the 12 million people that Joe Biden not only let in, but scattered all over the United States on often state, federal, local subsidy. That's going to be a task. But he has shut the border. No comprehensive immigration reform. None of the things they said was necessary. None of the things that said that it was impossible, that hampered by. He just did it. We've never seen anything like it.
And there you have it. And the reason there wasn't any comprehensive reform is because we didn't need one. What literally happened is the law was literally applied. That's it. Our laws were applied. Our laws were enforced. Tom Homan took his position serious and did his job. And even though that's a win for the United States, we still have the opposing party because, look, it's all about the team. It's not about what's good for the American people, right? They still find a way to make it a loss, to make it something negative. All right. Regardless, I'm calling this a win. And so within the first 100 days, Trump has achieved many things that, to be honest, the way he went about them were very questionable, made us scratch our heads like, is this really going to work? But yet here we are. We are a better nation right now. Are we the most respected? Well, that's up for debate. I can't say that we necessarily are when it comes to our position on the world stage, but fast forward to now, today, everybody is looking to the United States for help. Everybody is now back to looking to the United States to try to make a deal, to become a better partner. And let's just be honest, the United States, we ourselves, for those who live in the United States, we also need to be better partners to our allies. Enough for this tit for tat bullshit. Enough with this, cute little jabs about, buying Greenland and making Canada the 51st state. And, look, that was all fun at the time. But let's be grown-ups now. Let's move on from that. Yes, they were jokes. Yes, they were jabs. I don't believe they were serious. Some people try to say they were serious remarks by President Trump and his administration. But I don't know. I don't think so. I think that it's time to just, let that be, move on, take your wins, hold your head up high, and continue to develop this nation back into the leader of the world that it should be and was, and show our allies that we once again can be trusted and respected. So hats off to President Trump for his first 100 days, but we still have work to do. We still have to fix our relationships, and we still have to fix exactly how we are looked at and perceived by the rest of the world. And with that being said, the The breaking news, the hot stuff that happened today as I'm recording. The talks of the mineral deal that they said would never happen, that did nothing but benefit the US. And the only reason we were trying to do this is because Trump's just a big bad bully. But yet Ukraine agreed. Ukraine signed this deal. And it wasn't really called the mineral deal. I think it was the economic reform deal or whatnot. But here's a clip before the deal was signed. And you'll hear Trump speaking and referring to U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, because this was something that he put together. But this was before the deal was signed. There's a lot of controversy, a lot of what if, maybe, possibly, I don't know. It's more talk. This is never going to happen. Trump hasn't come through. Well, listen to this.
In 24 hours or so. Is it true that the Ukraine minerals deal is about to be signed in the next 24 hours or so? There's some reports saying that. And if it's true, has the deal changed at all from the last time we've heard about it?
Well, I'll ask Scott to answer the question because he's responsible for it.
Yeah, our side's ready to sign. Ukrainians decided last night to make some last-minute changes. We're sure that they will reconsider that, and we are ready to sign this afternoon if they are.
Can you talk about those last-minute changes? What was removed or put in its place?
Nothing's been removed. It's the same agreement that we agreed to on the weekend.
All right, so there you go. No changes, no amendments whatsoever. Sticking to the deal. Now, this was stated before the deal was signed. And right away, many people were like, yeah, this is bullshit. We heard this before. Same old story, blah, blah, blah. But it happened. It happened. Because literally about an hour, maybe 2 hours before I actually pressed the record button for this episode, here is U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent making a formal announcement.
Thanks to President Trump's tireless efforts to secure a lasting peace, I am glad to announce the signing of today's historic economic partnership agreement between the United States and Ukraine, establishing the United States-Ukraine Reconstruction Investment Fund. This partnership allows the United States to invest alongside Ukraine to unlock Ukraine's growth assets, mobilize American talent, capital, and governance standards that will improve Ukraine's investment climate and accelerate Ukraine's economic recovery. The Development Finance Corporation will participate and help to establish this fund in collaboration with the government of Ukraine. Today's agreement signals clearly to Russian leadership that the Trump administration is committed to a peace process centered on a free, sovereign, and prosperous Ukraine over the long term. It's time for this cruel and senseless war to end. The killing must stop, and both the United States and the government of Ukraine look forward to quickly operationalizing this historic economic partnership for both the Ukrainian and American people.
Now, why is this very important? You also may be asking, how does this contribute in any way towards a peace deal? Well, let's break this down a little bit. I'm going to try to unpack this. And again, this is still developing. So by the time you hear this, there may be other things that have been revealed, other news has come out. But as of now, as I'm speaking, as I'm recording, this is very significant because what people need to understand is this now puts the United States of America directly in the conflict. While it's not boots on the ground and actual military presence, at least not as of yet, it signifies that the United States is now committed to Ukraine, committed to them in a way that protects their investment and the well-being and economic growth of Ukraine, because now we're tied at the hip, as they say. We're now in it. We have to put our best foot forward in making sure that Ukraine is taken care of, because if Ukraine falls, this whole thing is for naught. It doesn't matter. And what's interesting is, well, as of now anyway, Putin hasn't responded. And I'm wondering what his response will be to this, because Putin very well knows that this now brings the U.S. directly into the conflict. And while people were talking about how frustrated Trump was, that Putin wouldn't come to terms, wouldn't sign the peace agreement, how he was playing around by going, oh, we'll give you 3 days of peace here on Easter, and then we'll do a little peace, during May 5th, 6th, I believe. I forget the actual date, so that, the Russians can celebrate their event or holiday. While he's doing this, he then turns around and just bombarding Ukraine with rockets and missiles, and then goes, "Okay, no, seriously, we're going to agree to the peace. Yeah, peace for 3 days. Don't worry." But now Putin can't play these games. Putin absolutely can't play these games. But the Russians must have known. The Russians must have known about this development. And just based on the previous video where they were talking about whether or not Ukraine was going to sign the deal because they might be making adjustments and whatnot, the word must have gotten out that an agreement was literally on the horizon, because Russia themselves, in fact, there are reports that came out today, breaking reports as of today, again, recording April 30th, 2025. There are reports that the secretary of the Russian Security Council, Sergei, I can't pronounce the name, I apologize, Shoigu, I believe, Shoigu. I should be better at this, I'm sorry. But let's just say the secretary of the Russian Security Council announced that any deployment of Western military onto Ukraine's soil would be unacceptable. He also further went on to say that these military units would be regarded as legitimate targets for the Russian armed forces. Now, that's a strong statement. That is literally directly signaling to the United States that, look, you may sign this deal with Ukraine, but we're not going to take your shit. See, they're hell-bent on the mission of actually taking Ukraine. Because regardless of what you hear from this media outlet, that media outlet, or this, analyst, that analyst, etc., blah, blah, blah. Let's just be honest. Most of it's all fucking bullshit. Regardless, Putin has been very adamant in the past, and has dropped many hints in recent times about reuniting the old USSR. He wants all territories to be back in and under Russian control. And that's what he wants. Because I believe it's his legacy. His time's getting shorter. He's getting older. He's been the de facto authoritarian leader and ruler of Russia for decades. And as of now, he's probably looking back at his life, looking back on everything he's done. He's like, we still haven't done it. We still haven't done it. So is this threat a real threat by the secretary of the Russian Security Council? Will they actually attack Western military forces if they set foot on Ukrainian soil? Is it a bluff? Is this their last-ditch effort to try to hold Western forces at bay? Possibly. It could be. But regardless, this deal, this economic reform deal, this mineral deal, as everybody calls it, puts the U.S. directly in the conflict. And if you don't believe this happened, it's also been confirmed by the she's currently serving as the first vice prime minister of Ukraine, and also simultaneously as the minister of economic development and trade for Ukraine. So she went on to say on her X post, on behalf of the government of Ukraine, I signed the agreement on the establishment of a United States Ukraine Reconstruction Investment Fund. Together with the United States, we are creating the fund that will attract global investment into our country. And there you have it. Confirmation from Ukraine themselves, admitting the deal's been signed. So what's the next steps? What's the next move? You see, this is a very important development, because with the United States now involved, now there to protect their investment, I believe that this gives the UK and France, to be quite honest, have been all huff and puff about this whole situation, saying they're going to send this troop, this Air Force, blah, 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 whatever. They've never done a damn thing, let's just be quite honest. But now that the US is going to be involved directly due to this agreement, mark my words, you will now start to see both the UK and France get a lot more testy with Russia and probably get a little more direct with Putin. I wouldn't doubt it. I really wouldn't. So let's not dismiss the importance of this mineral deal or economic reform agreement. This really does change things in regard to the Russia-Ukraine conflict, a conflict that needed to end long ago. Now, does this mean that Trump will now be able to twist Zelensky's arm into accepting the loss and annexation of Crimea? Basically, about 20%, I believe, of Ukrainian land, Putin said belongs to him. Will Zelensky accept that in light of this deal, knowing that the remaining land that belongs to Ukraine will be protected and be under the wing of the United States of America? That's yet to be seen, because if anything, Zelensky has been proven to be very stubborn and not willing to back down regardless of the situation. And he has every right, I believe he has every right to say, no, that's our land. This isn't yours. Never belonged to you. Even though it can be argued that those were Russian-speaking peoples who had more sympathy or alignment with Russia itself. But regardless, it was still Ukraine. And many consider it to still be Ukraine. So that can be the fly in the ointment here, because that has been the sticking point for Zelensky. Now, I'm going to guarantee this, that Ukraine is not going to demilitarize just as Putin wants, which was one of Putin's demands. He literally demanded that Ukraine be demilitarized, that 20% of its lands be annexed to Russia or be accepted as annexed to Russia. But is that going to happen? Is that really going to be considered now that the United States has this agreement with Ukraine? And will the UK and France back the United States of America? Will they back Trump's play in this whole thing? Very interesting. And I will say, if you want some more in-depth insight on this, and I know that it hasn't been released yet, but I'm very sure, I'm very positive that my friend Kervin Oakwin, the host of This Week Explained, that he and his wife will be talking about this. You bet your ass he will. And I'm going to encourage you to go listen to that episode when it drops. I know it's going to drop. And he's going to give you probably a much more neutral perspective on this with better insight than I, because, he's an intelligence analyst. I'm not going to compete with that. But hey, I'm here to give you my opinion based on my knowledge and what I know. And at this point, this is where I'm going to take a little break from the show. I just want to go ahead and acknowledge other independent podcasters. Look, many of you support me, and I just ask that you support my friends. You support my brother's podcast, The Manuel Font Show. I want you to support Whiskey Hell podcast. Whiskey Hell, great time, good people, very knowledgeable. If you want to hear some unhinged rants that are pretty much on point, you got to listen to I Had to Say It. So there's some really good podcasts out there that if you enjoy what I'm doing and you want to get more in depth into the geopolitics, again, listen to This Week Explained. If you want no bullshit takes on news and current events, listen to my brother and The Manuel Font Show. And if you want to hear something kind of similar to what I do, but on a much more, much more ranty version, I guess I would say, listen to I Had to Say It. And by all means, very similar to what I do as well, the Whiskey Hell podcast or Whiskey Hell News. You can find everybody that I just mentioned on every podcast aggregator out there. And that is my PSA for the episode. And now, continuing with this developing situation, the signed deal with Ukraine, the deal between the U.S. and Ukraine, that is, makes you wonder how much of this was in play, how much of this was already agreed to before it was announced, because other developments that came out in and around this or surrounding this deal is that I would say around April 26th or so, or April 29th, somewhere in those last few days, American F-16 airframes were spotted being loaded onto Ukraine-operated strategic airlifters at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base in Arizona, here on U.S. soil. we're loading a Ukrainian airframe with F-16 fighters, and they're on their way to Poland. Now, that's what's been reported. And this was before the deal was signed today, April 30th, 2025. Again, it's going to be very interesting to see how Putin responds to all of this. It really will be. But let's all hope that the response is that of peace, of making a deal, and just ending this conflict. Now, I know you don't want to hear this, especially if you're a Democrat, leftist, liberal, and you listen to this show. Because, I'm not all in on the right, although I definitely lean more that way these days. I'll be quite honest. I've never hid that. But I have to say it. And I have to say it. This all seems like winning. Trump is winning. Whether you like him or not, he's winning. He's winning so much, it's upsetting our neighbors to the north, Canada. You like that segue? Look, I tried to make it work. Now hang in there with me. So Canada, they just had their election. An election that a lot of people say looked very similar to the 2020 election that we had, where Trump looked like the clear winner and somehow Biden got 80 million something plus extra votes or whatnot. Look, that was in the past, right? We moved on. Some people never did. Some people will never get over that. But regardless, here we are now. Trump's in office. He's doing his best. And we hope that his best turns out to be a positive for both the U.S. and the world. Fingers crossed. Let's hope he keeps his composure. Well, the best that Trump can anyway. But let's get back to Canada, because Canada seems to be up in arms, screaming and huffing and literally throwing up the middle finger at the U.S. and saying, fuck Trump. The Liberal Party in Canada has won the election. Carney secures, according to CBS Live, or I believe that's where this report's from. I might be wrong. But anyway, it's a live news report. And this came from that report up in Canada, where they state Canada's Carney secures historic election win and says, get this, Trump will never break us. Okay, is this not getting ridiculous? Canada, your politics are your own. You make your own decisions. But I have to say what's interesting about this is everybody was complaining about being under the thumb of Trudeau. Okay. An unhinged ultra-leftist, by the way. And I have nothing wrong with someone being on the left. We need perspective. We need different views. We need balance. We absolutely do. But Trudeau went off the deep end. And his actions during COVID were definitely very authoritarian. All the way down to literally like taking control of people's bank accounts. Overstepping for sure. But again, that's Canada, not the United States. Canada makes their own decisions. A lot of people in Canada were complaining about, again, the immigration problem, just like we have here in the United States. And that was all under Trudeau's reign. It seemed that Canada was about to turn the corner, as they seemed to want to be a little bit more conservative. But yet somehow, in the 12th hour, Canada pulls out a liberal win and are now under the same type of rule as they just didn't want. Trudeau, the one that they were disappointed with. And all Canada has, and let me slow down here because I have Canadian listeners. I want you all to know I do not hate Canada. I'm not one of those MAGA type people where it's like, fuck Canada, fuck Mexico. No, I don't believe that. Canada's our neighbor, okay? We are allies, and we better remain that way. I want Canada to do well because you're right next door. You're right there above us. But I got to ask the question, how did this happen? How did you go back? How did you go back? I'm going to play a take from Patrick Bet-David. This was a live post that he put out on X. Now, I don't listen to a lot of Patrick Bet-David. I know who he is. Of course I do. I respect him. I have listened to his show. But this popped up on my feed, and I gotta say, I think it's funny more than anything. I also believe it sounds a bit unhinged coming from Patrick Bet-David, but he does make some good points. If anything, just give this a listen.
Canadian conservatives, I've got some unsolicited advice for you, the type you're not going to like, but I'm going to give it to you anyways. You know what you sound like every time you say it's Trump's fault why Pierre lost? Do you know what you sound like every time you say it's Trump's fault why Pierre Poilievre lost? And not only did he lose the prime minister, but he lost his seat that he's held since 2004. That is embarrassing. Each time you say that, you sound like the 51st state of the United States of America. You validate Trump's points, why you need him. You validate why you see him as your head of state. So you're blaming the president for your governor losing in Canada. It is embarrassing because if you did not even view it that way, you would never even bring up the point. You would never say it's Trump's fault.
All right, let me stop. I think that's a bit comedic. I don't agree with what he's saying. I mean, he's throwing jabs here, right? The 51st state, your governor, etc. I am going to come out and say I don't agree that should ever happen. Canada needs to remain Canada. But I get where Patrick's going with this. He's saying, well, if it's Trump's fault, then how did you allow this to happen? And how is the president of the United States, how is everything that happens in Canada the fault of the president of the United States? Do you not have your own prime minister, your own government? Do you not make your own decisions, do your own voting? You're a completely different sovereign nation. All right, let me continue this.
You wouldn't, because you're your own country. Who the hell that loses an election in a country where the opposing political parties' policies were so exposed the last 4 years during COVID that every country around the world knew how shitty things were in Canada, and you still didn't know how to make it win.
Referring to Trudeau.
You still didn't know how to win. And you lose your parliament, and you guys all acted like he was going to win and it was going to be a landslide victory. But no, it's Trump's fault. Of course, it's Trump's fault. No, it's Trump's fault. Because we view ourselves as the 51st state. Please, don't think I'm talking about every conservative in Canada. I'm specifically talking to the fanboy of Pierre Poilievre conservatives that were so convinced that this whole thing was going to be done. And all these other critics, you guys are such terrible critics and unfair. He's such a great man. I don't care how great of a man and a husband he is. The market doesn't give handouts of prime minister to great men and women. They give it to winners. You either win or you don't. They don't give it to victims, crybabies. It's not fair. It's Trump's fault. That is so unattractive. But you lost in a big way. And you handed it over to the guy that came up with the economic policies of Justin Trudeau. I don't know, again, I keep saying this, if I've seen anything more embarrassing than this, but stop blaming Trump for your loss.
I mean, again, I think some of this is comedic, but he does make some good points. How are you blaming Trump for your votes, for your votes within your own sovereign nation, your own country, the country of Canada? How do you blame votes that didn't go towards making the change in your country? How do you blame that on the president of another country? You got to take responsibility here. You really do. And look, I personally wish the best for Canada. I do. But again, Patrick Bet-David makes a good point. You voted a guy in that was responsible for the economic policies under Trudeau's leadership. You literally just extended the reign of the Trudeau-like leadership. That's all you did. Instead of Trudeau, it's Carney. That's the only difference, but it's the same policies. It's the same thing. It's the same thing that you all complained about. And you got it back. You got it back. You voted it back. You voted it back. Look, this whole thing of blaming Trump for the world's problems has got to end. Let America hold Trump accountable. And let other sovereign nations take responsibility for their own decisions. By all means, step up. Make the change. And when it doesn't go your way, Stop blaming America for it. You had the opportunity, you had the chance, and you ended up back where you didn't want to be, under the extended reign of the policies under the Trudeau administration that you opposed. And here you are, right back where you started. Well, again, I wish the best for Canada, but let's move on to another part of the world. Let's move on over to the Indian-Pakistani border. And let's focus on what's going on there. The two countries, Pakistan, India. Two countries that have a long history of literally not liking each other, but have somehow not gone to all-out war in recent times. And they've even had border disputes where they've laid their weapons down and just beat each other with sticks and then turned around and went their separate ways. But that's not the case right now. See, in light of the terrorist attack that was carried out by militant Islamists in Kashmir that seemed to be targeting tourists and resulted in the deaths of at least 26 people, India suspended all visas for Pakistani nationals. And in response, Pakistan closed itself off to all Indian nationals. Now, this triggered a very old dispute and hatred between the two nations, Pakistan and India. And it's been escalating. Now, shortly after that, the Pakistani troops killed 54 Afghan militants that were trying to enter Pakistan by crossing their Pakistani borders. And as we keep going on in this conflict, as this conflict develops, Indian Prime Minister Modi, less than a day ago, or roughly about a day ago, announced that he's going to give the Indian Army freedom to act, freedom to respond to any Pakistani response, aggression, movement, whatever, as they see fit. So if the Indian military feels that Pakistan is acting aggressively, then on their own, the Indian military may react in a military fashion, an aggressive military fashion towards Pakistan. And in response, Pakistan is saying that they are going to be doing the same thing. Now, why is this scary? Because both countries are nuclear countries. And Pakistan has also recently announced that they're willing to do anything it takes to protect themselves by all means necessary, any means, which is alluding to nuclear weapons. The reason this stands out to me is because this literally may lead to a nuclear war. And this reminds me, see, when I was a kid, I watched this documentary. I never forgot this. It was about Nostradamus and his predictions, and they were talking about the various quatrains and whatnot. And I have no idea why this one prediction that was interpreted as Nostradamus making the prediction that in 2025, we would be entering World War III. And it was further broken down and interpreted to mean that it would start in the Middle East, and specifically, I believe, from what I remember, specifically in Pakistan, that they would be the ones to launch the first nuclear missile that would trigger World War III. Now, listen, you can chalk this up to conspiracy, obviously. You can even chalk this up to being mystic bullshit if you want. But I remember that prediction always stuck with me. And I wake up one morning and I see this report of this conflict. And with everything going on in the world, with what's going on with Russia, Ukraine, look, we still have a major issue going on between Israel and Hamas. And we got the Palestinian people stuck in the middle. We have multiple things going on. We have China just antagonizing the Philippines as well as Taiwan. That whole Indo-Pacific region, China is just being a giant bully as of late. And now we got official reports that North Korea has actually been in Ukraine, just as I have said and reported on episodes ago. I don't even remember which episode it is, but go back to the catalog, you'll find it. So we have actual confirmed reports that North Korea is involved in the Ukraine war. China is just going around antagonizing the Indo-Pacific region. And China has also admitted to helping out with technologies in the Russia-Ukraine war. And now we have this Pakistan-India conflict. So the only positive that came from today, as of this recording, is that we do have that Ukraine-US deal that was signed. And again, that can be very positive. If Putin backs down and realizes it's not worth pursuing, that this is not going to go well for you. Because now with the U.S. stepping into that situation, the rest of the world is much more apt to step in and also back this play. But what's going on between India and Pakistan? Look, I don't know how that's going to get cooled down. In fact, Pakistan has reached out publicly. These reports have come out that Pakistan themselves are asking the U.S. to calm India down, to talk to Modi and be like, hey, you need to chill for a sec. Let this play out. Pakistan wasn't the one responsible for this terrorist attack, although India does blame Pakistan because they have had a history of harboring terrorists. But Pakistan reaching out to the U.S. for help signals that Pakistan does not want to get into a war, because Pakistan realizes that this would not be good for anybody. So let's hope that cooler heads prevail. Look, let's take the wins that we got today as of April 30th, as of this recording, and hopefully by the time you listen to this, things are still going well. Things are still positive. Let's hope that Putin's response is positive, that he does enter into a peace deal. And hey, Trump, if you're listening, step in and try to cool down India, will you? We don't need another war that we need to be dragged into, because India is our ally. And if Pakistan is reaching out to the United States for help because they're in fear of a major conflict, which again will be a disaster, America does need to step in and make sure that we both support India and convince India, or convince Modi, that cooler heads must prevail. All right. Thank you very much for listening to the show. I appreciate all of you. Go to worldablaze.podcast.com. Hey, send me some love, some support. Continue to listen, share the show, and have a great day.
I wanna taste your content, hold your breath and feel the tension. Devils hide behind redemption. Honesty is a one-way gate to hell.